boy was out hunting when he was unfortunately targeted and caught by a lion. But ironically, the lion's blood dripped precisely onto his open wound. The boy, who was certain of death, suddenly began to transform. From that day on, he was no longer a normal human being. The essences of human and lion resonated together for the very first time. How powerful would this combination eventually become for humanity? Would he ultimately be a friend or a foe? Let's go back to the afternoon when the accident occurred. The boy's name was Kraven. That day, he and his younger brother were led by their father to hunt. But soon after disaster struck, a majestic lion suddenly blocked their path. Kraven, seeing the ferocity in its eyes, quickly moved to position himself in front of his younger brother. He held a gun, but facing the king of the jungle, no one was sure they could take it down with just one shot. The situation was extremely awkward. They couldn't advance, nor could they retreat. In this critical moment, Kraven chose to put down his weapon. He wanted to tell the lion they had no ill intentions. Afterward, an unbelievable scene unfolded before them. The anger in the lion's eyes gradually disappeared, replaced by a profound sense of peace and gentleness. Precisely as Kraven had just begun to relax his guard, a gunshot rang out, instantly shattering that fragile peace. The gunshot came from his father. It was very clear that he had greatly underestimated the lion's vitality. The shot lion was instantly enraged, carrying its fiery anger as it charged straight towards everyone. In just one encounter, it bit right through Kraven's body. The panicked father frantically pulled the trigger, but he couldn't get the lion to stop, not even for a second. In the end, Kraven was tragically carried away by it. The father knew his son had almost no chance of survival, but a greater change was silently occurring at that very moment. The lion's blood flowed down and seeped into Kraven's wound. Unexpectedly, it created a special reaction with the cells in his body. Young Kraven felt as if he was being reborn from a sea of fire. No one could have imagined that such a strange spark was igniting between two completely different species. The lion also seemed to sense the change happening in the boy. Therefore, it placed him gently on the ground, then turned its back and walked away. No one knew how much time had passed, but Kraven escaped the lion's mouth and luckily survived. However, his father wasn't happy about his son's return. Since he was originally a local crime syndicate boss, he hoped his son, when facing stronger individuals, would exhibit the brave and fearless demeanor of a true man, rather than returning home miserably and looking so timid like this. And the father occasionally used the law of the strong and the weak to teach the two brothers. He hoped Kraven, as the eldest son, could one day inherit the gang, but Kraven had no positive feelings whatsoever for this kind of family upbringing. In his eyes, his father was nothing but a tyrant. He was not only unreasonable, but also forced the entire family to accept his way of thinking. When he turned and saw the lion specimen on the wall, the anger in his heart flared up even more fiercely. Afterward, he locked himself in his room, staying away from his cold-blooded father. Some time ago, his mother had endured his father's violence for too long, suffering immensely. She ultimately chose to end her own life. Kraven was completely disappointed by all these events. He decided to leave home to find a place that truly belonged to him. Before leaving, he took a special card with him. To him, it was like a good luck charm. Leaving the manor controlled by his father was never easy. Kraven climbed onto the roof to make his escape. Unexpectedly, the tiles below suddenly broke, and he immediately lost his balance, then fell. And just as he thought he would surely break his leg, his body gently landed like a... He didn't understand what was happening, but the immediate task was to leave this place. Kraven traveled straight west, heading to his mother's homeland from many years ago. This expansive and remote grassland is located in eastern Russia. As he was immersed in the grandeur of nature, a huge sound suddenly came from behind him. It was like a massive army charging straight towards them, or a huge wave surging forward with immense power. It was an immense herd of bison, too numerous to count, charging forward at terrifying speed. In such a situation, even a lion would have to immediately get out of the way. On the flat grassland, there was absolutely no place to hide. Kraven knew he had little chance of survival this time, so he decisively covered his head and surrendered to fate. But unexpectedly, the iron hooves of the bison herd did not stamp down as he had anticipated. Kraven slowly opened his eyes. The sight before him utterly shocked him. He saw the lead bison standing right in front of him, while the enormous bison herd split into two to avoid him until they all crossed the area. Seeing him safe and sound, the lead bison then felt relieved and turned to leave. This particular event brought Kraven a massive and profound shock. He began to seriously think about the strange things that had recently happened to him. Not long after, he discovered the new skills he had just acquired. Now, he could not only communicate with wild animals without any hindrance, but his bodily functions were also greatly enhanced. Now, with just a swing of his arm, a log could fly several hundred meters and embed itself directly into a target tree. His immense speed and strength astonished people even further. He could even run alongside male deer, and with just a slight crouch, he could leap onto high cliffs. His vision, enhanced beyond beyond normal limits helped Kraven clearly sense everything within the forest. Just as he was still experiencing a sense of novelty and excitement from these new changes, a gunshot suddenly ripped through the sky. He immediately climbed to the top of a 100-year-old tree, and discovered that two criminals were poaching bison 1,000 meters away. He immediately sped like an arrow to stop them, but by the time he arrived at the scene, the poachers had already vanished without a trace. Seeing the dozens of bison carcasses lying strewn across the ground, Kraven felt his blood surge with heat, unable to contain his escalating anger. Just then, two poachers ran up, threatening him and telling him to leave immediately. Otherwise his fate would be like the bison lying on the ground. Kraven could not tolerate it any longer. He swiftly picked up a spear from the ground, then rushed like a hunting tiger, knocking one of them down, and then, with a quick move, finished off both men. He thought he could finally breathe a sigh of relief, but signs of more poachers appeared in another direction, looking at the poaching scene with dead bodies lying everywhere, where Kraven silently swore in his heart that he would avenge these innocent lives. 16 years passed by in the blink of an eye. By this time, he had transformed into a top-tier professional assassin. His name was widely known in the underworld. Because once someone was marked on his death list, there was only one path left: death. Kraven showed absolutely no mercy to those who were utterly evil. Even if his targets hid in prison, he would hunt them down to the very end. That day, Kraven pursued his target all the way to a prison. Upon his arrival, he immediately made a pact with his future cellmate. If he couldn't escape this place within 3 days, he would let his cellmate deal with him. The other party found this proposition hard to believe, but ultimately agreed happily. The following day, Kraven proceeded to the common area to locate the gang boss. Just then, two of the boss's henchmen approached to cause trouble. These two intended to teach the newcomer a lesson they wouldn't forget, but neither gained any advantage at all. Instead, they were beaten until they were dizzy and disoriented on the spot. The warden arrived in time to stop them. Then, the warden escorted Kraven to the gang boss's room. Kraven was not surprised in the slightest, because this was precisely his purpose for coming to this place: the gang leader's henchman. At this moment, the opponent seemed to wake from a dream, realizing that he himself was the true target. The warden, hearing the commotion, quickly came rushing over, but unexpectedly, Kraven swung his arm and sent him flying out. And afterward, he sped through the prison as if flying over walls and rooftop. In a mere blink of an eye, within a prison guarded with countless layers, he tore open a path for his escape. The piercing alarm sirens blared throughout the entire prison, but Kraven's speed was nothing short of a cheetah's, a speed that no ordinary person could ever hope to match. In less than a few minutes, Kraven successfully escaped from prison, but an even greater danger was about to strike next. At this time, a blizzard was raging fiercely across the wilderness. Under such harsh circumstances, no matter how strong Kraven's senses were, he could still easily lose his way. As if misfortunes never come singly, a wounded white wolf blocked his path. A golden gleam was seen to flash within Kraven's eyes. Under the effect of his mental induction, the white wolf's murderous aura immediately vanished completely, thanks to the white wolf's help. Kraven successfully found his tunnel friend who came to assist him. He wiped off the tattoo used for disguise. At the same time, the team hunting Kraven also arrived, but only found a body with an identical tattoo, its face mauled by wolves beyond recognition. After completing his mission, Kraven returned to the grassland where he lived. Just then, a group of bison poachers came into his sight, so Kraven went ahead to the road their vehicles would surely pass to ambush them. At this time, these criminals still wanted to bully the weak with their numbers. They had no idea how terrifying their opponent was. Kraven deftly flipped onto the car's roof and in a few moves dealt with the two thugs on top. The leader in the other car saw this and quickly swerved, fleeing for his life. Kraven did not intend to pursue further. He simply memorized the opponent's license plate, and after escaping, the leader immediately reported the situation to his boss. But the man sitting in the chair was Kraven. Kraven calmly shot an arrow, finishing him off, then crossed this name off a list. Before leaving, he didn't forget to casually close the room door. Afterward, he found a girl and took out that strange card. The girl immediately realized the man before her was the boy who escaped the lion's mouth years ago. Turned out that after Kraven was carried away by the lion that year, Caliso happened to be traveling with her parents in the same area. That card was a gift from her fortune telling grandmother before her journey. Her grandmother said the card would bring her luck. After the lion set Kraven down in front of Caliso, it revealed eyes and an expression as if pleading for help. So Caliso took the boy to a nearby hospital and left the card on Kraven. Not only that, Caliso also left Kraven a mysterious medicine passed down through her family for generations, hoping he could survive this ordeal. But despite the medical staff's best efforts, the boy eventually stopped breathing. Just as the doctor was about to remove medical equipment, he suddenly revived. Perhaps it was all fate's arrangement. Years later, Kraven finally caught the scent of his savior from back then, so he immediately sought out Caliso, for he had waited 16 years for this day. Caliso was a prominent lawyer among the local legal community, but her mentor was brutally murdered during a case. Kraven said he had just avenged Caliso's mentor. Per people estate, the man behind it was the gang leader in prison, and after Caliso returned home, she indeed saw news of the gang leader's death in prison. So she met Kraven again and told him her true feelings. She understood Kraven did this only to repay a favor, but Caliso couldn't accept him killing someone because of it. But they didn't know the news of the gang leader's death quickly reached a strange man. Having undergone genetic modification surgery, he could transform into a monster with rhinoceros horn. His thick skin was bulletproof, so he was nicknamed Zeno. He was Nikolai's former subordinate, Kraven's father. This ambitious man was recruiting people everywhere, wanting to expand his influence and gradually control the entire local underworld. So Zeno sought out Boss, the deceased gang leader's former subordinate, attempting to persuade them to work for him from now on. Zeno himself looked quite polite and refined, making it hard to associate him with the name Zeno. To prove his strength, Zeno pulled out the tube connecting his backpack to his body, and instantly his skin began to change. Boss's subordinates turned pale with fear and immediately opened fire. Zeno, not yet fully transformed, was shot and fell to the ground on the spot, but in an instant he stood up unharmed. Then he calmly removed the bullet from his chest. At this moment, Boss's group was already wide-eyed and open-mouthed. Zeno reinserted the tube, and his body returned to its normal appearance. Facing such a terrifyingly powerful foe, Boss had no choice but to join him. It was evening, and Boss arrived at the agreed meeting place to see Nikolai. Nikolai expressed regret over their boss's death and offered to protect Boss's group. In fact, Nikolai had long intended to recruit them, but out of respect for the other gang leader, he hadn't done so earlier. Before they could talk further, Zeno's assassins stormed into the club. Pointed their guns at Nikolai and fired continuously. Fortunately, he reacted extremely quickly, which he as Cream, Porta, swinging his arm to pull Boss in front of him, blocking the first volley of shots. When the danger temporarily subsided, Nikolai found his youngest son, Dmitri, trembling under a table. This disappointed him immensely, as he was the city's crime boss. He hoped his youngest son could replace Kraven, who had left home, as his successor. But given the current situation, Dmitri was far from that goal. News of the failed operation quickly reached Zeno, who was not at all surprised by this. If Nikolai couldn't even handle one assassin, how could he hold his position today? At this moment, Zeno's subordinate handed him a USB containing surveillance footage of Kraven's prison escape. Only today did he realize that Kraven had left home years ago. Zeno felt extremely uneasy about this. He worried that once Kraven and Nikolai resolved their differences, he would then struggle to cause more trouble. So Zeno decided to deploy his main asset. This person was named Forsen. Any opponent who looked him directly in the eyes would be instantly hypnotized by his superpower. Zeno wanted to target this assassin, launching a meticulously planned assassination plot. At this time, Kraven, of course, knew nothing about it. Today was his brother's birthday, and he planned a surprise for him. To avoid Nikolai's eyes and guards, he even free-climbed a skyscraper. After much effort, he successfully met his brother again. That year, on the night he left home, Dmitri had begged Kraven to take him along, but Kraven refused. But throughout the years, Dmitri had endured much torment, both physically and mentally, at his father's hand. Kraven felt extremely guilty towards Dmitri about this. In reality, the two brothers didn't completely share the same outlook on life. Kraven left home because he couldn't stand Nikolai. Bastard Day as a quote, constantly trampling on his self-esteem. Meanwhile, Dmitri still hoped for his father's approval, which Kraven disdained. He believed Nikolai was violent through and through, and hoped his brother would cut ties with him, living the life he truly desired. Unexpectedly, just as he finished speaking, Nikolai suddenly arrived, not wanting to ruin his brother's birthday party atmosphere. Kraven forced a smile and shook Nikolai's hand. After leaving the party, Kraven went to a park and slept straight until early morning. He had planned to bid farewell to his brother Dmitri, but when he arrived at his place, Kraven found the room inside was in disarray, and there was even a large streak of color on the wall. Dmitri had long vanished without a trace, and Kraven knew something serious had happened. Hearing commotion downstairs, he immediately rushed to the balcony, and indeed found a group of thugs forcing Dmitri into a car. Seeing this, Kraven didn't hesitate and immediately plunged from above. This height was nothing to him, but by now, the thugs had driven onto the main road. Kraven wasn't about to give up. He instantly accelerated, unleashing incredible power, and the distance between them quickly closed. His anger caused his muscle strength to surge. Immediately after, Kraven slammed into the car door, then jumped onto the roof, intending to smash the window. But the kidnappers were speeding, and Kraven, losing balance for a moment, was flung off. The kidnappers brought Dmitri to the harbor, preparing to take him away by helicopter. Kraven chased them all the way here. Just before the helicopter took off, he used a rope to lock the landing gear, channeling every muscle fiber to confront the enemy to the end. But kidnappers didn't play fair. To avoid incoming bullets, he slammed the other end of the rope into a stone pillar, then turned to dodge the volley of bullets. Then he spun around elegantly, pushing himself off the steel pipe, and in the blink of an eye, he knocked the gunman into the sea. Then he somersaulted once and tightly gripped the towing plate. As the helicopter ascended, Kraven's body was continuously dragged across the sea, finally crashing hard into the floating buoy. Seeing Dmitri taken by the kidnappers, Kraven didn't dare waste any more time. He quickly sought out Kaliso, hoping she could help him locate the enemy's headquarters. Kaliso very much wanted to help him, but she needed a bit more time. Out of options, Kraven had no choice but to find his father, but Nikolai had already received a severed finger sent by the kidnappers. The enemy's intention was clear without a word. They demanded Nikolai pay a 20 million ransom. This money was nothing to his father. To maintain his image and authority, Nikolai decided to ignore the kidnappers' demand. Kraven was completely disappointed by this. He completely gave up on asking his father for help. Fortunately, Kaliso's friend was a mole within the kidnappers' faction. That person provided the enemy's hideout location. However, this informant had no idea that Fawzan had already targeted him. After getting the enemy's location, Kraven immediately rushed to the location without delay. The kidnappers' hideout was on a treacherous cliff, but sneaking inside was not difficult for him. Kraven carefully moved through the base. The patrol guards were instantly killed by his poison arrows before they could react. He silently approached the guards like a shadow. Even though they were highly vigilant, the enemy couldn't detect his trace. Unexpectedly, just as he was about to strike, the alarm suddenly blared. But Kraven's movements were too fast, making it impossible for the team to aim accurately. Soon, he had eliminated everyone in the area. Only the small goatee-bearded leader remained. He spared his life to interrogate him about his brother's whereabouts, but before the goatee could speak, a missile suddenly launched. In that moment of extreme peril, Kraven grabbed the goatee and fell down the cliff with him. The missile explosion collapsed the cliff. He couldn't let the clue end here, so he used his back to block the falling rocks for him. When the rock face completely collapsed, Kraven hadn't even gotten an answer. Giant boulders fell, burying both of them completely. Soon, two assassins arrived to check if the target was dead. They were proudly thinking they had achieved a great feat. Unexpectedly, Kraven appeared behind the two like a phantom. Their attempt to deceive a legendary assassin was truly more laughable than a daydream. Meanwhile, Dmitri had been brought to Zino. Zino didn't plan to kill him immediately. He even sympathized with his childhood. Their fathers were all cold-blooded men. He told Kraven he participated in a biotransformation experiment. He hoped he would also accept the modification. That way he would gain powerful superpowers, though the experiment would cause constant, unbearable pain. But in this era, power meant freedom from others' control. He could even end Nikolai's godfather reign. Their conversation was interrupted when Fawzan entered. Fawzan took out a strange plant. He said this rare species came from Siberia. The poison arrows Kraven used were made from it. Fawzan told Zino Dmitri absolutely couldn't be killed now. Kraven had very few weaknesses. KPA, Nephrant Est. His brother might be his biggest fatal weakness. By finding the plant's origin, they could find Kraven and ambush him. On the other side, Kaliso's spies had been killed by Fawzan. Kraven feared she'd be next, so he took her to his Siberia home. This place was hard to find and housed many experimental tools. Kraven had researched many herbs here. His main goal was to recreate Kaliso's miraculous medicine, but Kaliso couldn't help. The medicine formula was long lost. Zino's group was now heading toward this place. Fawzan created a secret poison to awaken a target's deepest fears. What awaited the victim was organ failure and death. The army advanced, unaware they had stepped into a trap. A white animal shadow darted past. Dmitri seized the moment and ran deep into the forest. Fawzan immediately sent a small team in pursuit, but Kraven had already set up an inescapable trap. He moved in and out of sight, giving his pursuers no time to react. Then they were sent straight to their death. Screams echoed, making Zino realize his subordinates were in grave danger, so he ordered a carpet bombing of the entire area. Luckily, Kraven's cheetah-like speed allowed him to dodge the missiles. Just as he thought danger passed, a poison arrow arrow hit, making him dizzy. His vision distorted, body lost balance, and countless venomous spiders swayed. Seeing the toxin take effect, Fawzan used hypnotism, making Kraven passive. In the terrifying illusion, his will faced an unprecedented test. Unable to distinguish reality, he tried to fight back, but moved extremely slow. He thought he caught the foe, but it was just a rotten tree stump. Deadliest, tree, stump. Kraven's body and mind were both near their limits. In this critical moment, a sharp arrow pierced Fawzan's head. Caliso appeared like a divine warrior. After killing Fawzan, she used the last miraculous medicine, reviving Kraven. Zino received news and thought Kraven was dead, preparing to withdraw, but the next scene stunned him. A dense herd of raging buffalo charged this way. Surviving such an impact would be like a pipe dream. In this situation, Zino could only fight. His body quickly turned black. His muscle strength increased exponentially. The off-road vehicle was insignificant before the buffalo herd. Kraven was rushing this way. Zino climbed onto the roof, preparing for a death match, but Kraven directly kicked him, sending him flying. Zino stood and faced the car without dodging, readying his stance. Then Kraven was flung away by the enormous inertia. Facing the flying car, he used agile movements to dodge it. Then, both plunged into a fierce close-quarters battle. Zino's defense was extremely formidable. No matter how Kraven attacked, he couldn't injure him or gain any advantage. Under Zino's heavy blows, Kraven barely had time to breathe. He was even sucked out and flung with the truck. He wanted to use the truck to blind his foe and counter, but instead his neck was choked. In a one-on-one close combat, Zino had no reason to lose. Kraven felt his breath becoming increasingly difficult. In that critical moment, he saw the connection port on Zino's side. He plunged his dagger into the monster's body with all his strength. Zino, in pain, had to release him. Enraged, he intended to deliver a retaliatory blow. Unexpectedly, his opponent held him tight with steel wire. With agile moves, Kraven quickly bound Zino tightly, then tied the other end to a rampaging buffalo's head. After being trampled, Zino had no strength left to stand. After this, Kraven immediately sought out Nikolai. He knew then that his father sent Zino the prison break video. Faced with his son's questions, Nikolai no longer hid the truth. He knew the assassin was his son, so he sought Zino. He wanted to use Zino's power to eliminate his eldest son. After Kraven knew the truth, his heart grew completely cold. No matter what, he would not kill his father himself. Finally, Nikolai was attacked and killed by a brown bear led by Kraven. 1 year later, Kraven attended Dimitri's birthday party again. He was surprised to find his once timid, weak brother had become the family's new leader. Kraven was extremely shocked by this news. He didn't want Dimitri to follow the same destructive path. Waited for the party to end to talk to Dimitri about his future, but the news he learned shocked him even more. It turned out Dimitri had already accepted biological experiments. He personally planned the entire scheme to ascend to power. In this calculated game, even Kraven became Dimitri's pawn. The film's story ends here. See you in the next video.